Waking up from a coma, the man was horrified to discover that his right arm felt strange. He panicked and screamed that this was not his arm, but the doctor did not believe him. This was the arm of the devil. Unexpectedly, just as he finished speaking, his right arm suddenly lost control, violently ripping off the iron handcuffs and then attacking everyone around. With just a light push, the police officer was thrown far away. He accidentally took out the doctor as well. This arm not only possessed terrifying strength, but was also extremely difficult to control. Finally, 2 police officers had to join forces just to subdue him. The female nurse hurriedly administered a sedative, causing him to gradually calm down. Meanwhile, the true owner of the arm, the zombie leader who had just resurrected not long ago, was looking for a new piece to replace his missing part. The zombie doctor carefully brought the material over, pressing it against the leader's arm. A bizarre scene occurred right after. Thick black smoke billowed up, and the 2 parts quickly fused together. The zombie leader sprang to his feet, clenching his fist to test its strength. Seeing that it was functioning smoothly, he immediately left for a nearby cemetery, preparing to resurrect the soldiers from World War II. To complete his previously unfinished mission, he clenched his fist and punched the ground hard. Countless white rays of light spread across the night sky. But a few seconds later, the cemetery still had no movement at all. The zombie doctor hastily dug something up from a grave and told the leader that the reason the soldiers couldn't be resurrected was that those corpses were too old, so the leader had to shift his target to humans. As the pastor in the church was about to go home, a dark shadow suddenly blocked his way. By the time he realized who the opponent was, it was too late to escape. The pastor's fate in the movie was predictable. The zombie leader simply placed his left hand on his face, and immediately he came back to life. In just the blink of an eye, he had gained another absolutely loyal zombie soldier. At the same time, the man on the hospital bed suddenly woke up. The zombie arm allowed him to clearly see everything that had just happened. He tried to struggle up to escape, but realized he was tightly secured to the hospital bed. His only option was to shout loudly, warning everyone that the zombie army was coming, but unfortunately, no one heard him. As he was panicking, not knowing what to do, a little boy suddenly crawled out from under the bed. Seeing Martin's zombie arm, he was extremely curious. Taking advantage of the guard's inattention, he sneaked into the room and used his phone to take a few pictures, sending them exactly to a professional zombie disposal squad. Hearing that there was such a group, Martin immediately told him to quickly call them for rescue. He even took out some chocolate as bait. The little boy actually believed him and helped Martin untie the ropes. But before he could grab the chocolate, he was knocked down by the out-of-control zombie arm. Martin turned to look, only to see the window shattered with a large hole. In a panic, he rushed outside and saw that the boy was sleeping soundly. Realizing that things weren't as serious as he thought, Martin hurriedly woke the boy up. Obviously, Martin couldn't control the strength of the zombie arm, and that scene was witnessed by the police who heard the noise. In such a situation, out of the 36 stratagems, running away is the best policy. He had to temporarily borrow the boy's phone and run away. Seeing this, the police immediately gave chase, but Martin's zombie arm lost control once again. That unintentional action made Martin extremely regretful. But right at that moment, another police officer appeared. Not wanting to make a mistake, Martin smashed the window of a car on the side of the road, started the engine, hit the gas, and sped away. On the run, the boy's phone suddenly rang. When answering the call, he discovered it was the zombie disposal squad the boy had mentioned. The other side asked about the boy's whereabouts. Martin said he was sulking and refused to answer the phone, adding that he himself had just been bitten on the arm. Furthermore, a horde of zombies was preparing to attack humanity. Martin, like a drowning man catching a straw, immediately begged the zombie disposal squad to quickly come to his rescue. Little did he know that the so-called professional squad was actually just 3 amateur zombie movie nerds. But all 3 absolutely believed that zombies were real, so they crossed halfway around the world, flying from the US to Norway, bringing along all their anti-zombie weapons hastily bought at a supermarket. The weapons in their hands were just a few simple items like hammers, scissors, and shovels. Everything was ready. The 3 immediately set off to rendezvous with Martin. By this time, Martin had arrived at a World War II museum. He wanted to find out the true purpose of that zombie horde. Unexpectedly, the newspaper in the staff member's hand had his wanted poster printed on it. Realizing he was a wanted criminal, the girl panicked and cried for help. Martin didn't have time to explain him, so he hastily held her tight, begging her to teach him a crash course in World War II history. The girl reluctantly took him to the second floor to learn. In the photo, the naval colonel on the right was exactly the zombie leader. It turned out that during World War II, he was sent by Hitler to northern Norway to protect the battleship Tirpitz hiding in the bay. But the British military had received intelligence and dispatched planes to drop bombs and destroy the ship. After that incident, Hitler ordered the colonel to harm the surrounding villagers in retaliation, but he met fierce resistance from the people, was ultimately defeated, forced to retreat into the snowy mountains, and met a disastrous end in those freezing peaks. Now, he and his soldiers had turned into zombies and come back to life once again, just to complete their unfinished mission from the past. Looking at the map, their destination was the town of Tyneset, and this museum sat right on their path. If Martin's deduction was correct, the zombie army would definitely pass through here. Just as he finished his sentence, strange noises echoed outside. The two ran to the window and were stunned into silence upon seeing that the zombies had actually arrived. They were aggressively attacking innocent tourists. Deafening screams echoed at the scene. This horde of zombies didn't eat anything. They were completely emotionless machines. Two zombies wanted to refuel the tank, so they used a makeshift hose as a fuel line and transferred oil from a bus to the tank. The sight made the two of them stare in wide-eyed astonishment. In the blink of an eye, all the tourists were lying on the ground. Even more terrifying, some people were resurrected on the spot into zombies by the zombie leader. Seeing them heading toward the museum, the girl trembled with fear. Martin, on the other hand, was extremely calm. He quickly came up with a countermeasure, which was to pretend to be wax statues of Nazi soldiers. Soon after, the zombies swarmed into the museum. They smashed the display cases and took back the weapons that originally belonged to them. The zombie leader, who was originally the colonel, marched straight ahead, completely unaware of anything unusual about the two wax statues nearby. Luckily, thanks to their superb acting skills, the two finally managed to fool the zombies. The colonel smashed the glass pane in front of him, grabbed the map, and left. Waiting until they were far away, the two finally breathed a sigh of relief. When they stepped outside, the grand zombie army had disappeared without a trace. A few zombies were still left behind. Seeing living people, they immediately lunged forward to attack. But Martin wasn't panicked at all. He even intended to test the power of the zombie arm. By now, he had completely controlled the power within that arm. Looking at the tourists lying there, a deep sadness welled up in Martin's heart. He just wanted to help them rest in peace, but accidentally triggered another ability of the zombie arm. Along with a few violent convulsions, these people suddenly came back to life. Clearly, Martin had acquired the exact same ability as the zombie leader. Before the two could gather their wits, an axe flew in from nowhere. The newcomers were none other than the zombie disposal squad. This was also the first time they had seen real zombies in real life. Led by Daniel, he was so excited that he took a selfie with the zombie. That greenhorn behavior made Martin instantly suspicious. Were they really a professional squad? Though a bit disappointed, in an emergency, having 3 people to help was still better than nothing. Martin then demonstrated his special ability again in front of the whole squad. He resurrected the zombie from just a moment ago. Daniel immediately came up with a bold idea. He wanted to use that very ability to create a battle-hardened zombie army, an army that could fight against the zombie horde. On the way here, Daniel had researched countless documents on the Nazi soldiers, especially regarding that naval colonel. He had once captured a group of Soviet soldiers and then massacred them all. Now, the bodies of that group of Soviet soldiers were buried in the nearby snowy mountain. The layer of frost kept the bodies perfectly preserved. If Martin could resurrect them, he could create a Soviet zombie army for a counterattack. Those souls would definitely not spare the fascists. Without hesitation, the group immediately sprang into action. To avoid further civilian casualties, they decided to split into 2 groups. Martin and Daniel, along with their zombie teammate, went to resurrect the Soviet soldiers, while the 3 girls found a way to delay the approaching zombie army. At this time, the zombie leader's army had driven their tank, aggressively advancing toward the next village. 3 young boys stood frozen upon seeing the tank approach. Before they could understand what was happening, a couple in the bathroom, minding their own business, suddenly had their door kicked open. Several zombies immediately rushed inside. One woman was even given a flying lesson, and just like that, facing a visit from a tank, some realized the danger and fled. But before running more than a few steps, they got to watch a vintage tank performance. Before long, the entire village was devoid of any living soul. When the 3 girls arrived, the zombie army had moved on to the next target. Their ranks were growing increasingly massive. Clearly, the colonel had resurrected many new zombies. If this continued, it would be extremely dangerous. The 3 quickly discussed among themselves, deciding to let the girl attract the zombies. The remaining 2 would lay in ambush, waiting for a chance to attack. The goal was to stall them for as long as possible. Despite being a bit scared, thinking of her lover in the neighboring village, for love, she was determined not to back down. And so she bravely stepped out to face the zombie army. Seeing this, the colonel immediately ordered his soldiers to halt. He wanted to see who was bold enough to block his path, daring to single-handedly challenge his entire legion. "Come and catch me, you idiots," she shouted loudly. How could the zombie leader endure such an insult? Seeing the opponent both provoking him and attempting to run away, he immediately gave a command with a wave of his hand. Half the legion was dispatched to pursue the girl. The girl ran for her life in fear. Fortunately, the swamp slowed the zombies down. Seeing that the time was right, the other two quickly used homemade explosives, throwing them straight at the zombie horde. The flames from the explosion immediately caught the attention of the entire horde, but many still clung tightly to the girl without letting go. These two continued to throw more. They successfully eliminated loads of zombies with the explosives. Before long, all the pursuing zombies were logged out, but before the three could rejoice for long, they suddenly saw a tank pointing right at them. The group immediately realized things were bad. They hastily turned and ran for their lives. Thick dust and smoke engulfed all three of them. The zombie leader used binoculars to observe the situation but couldn't see their shadows anywhere. Thinking the whole gang was finished, he ordered a change of direction to continue the march. Meanwhile, on Martin's side, he was still desperately racing against time. Unexpectedly, while driving, the companion zombie boy suddenly showed strange symptoms. Oh my god, he was carsick. Not only that, he also casually threw up right where he had just thrown up. The two men had to endure the whole journey in a state of nausea. By nightfall, they finally reached their destination. Before their eyes was the burial ground of the Soviet soldiers. But Martin didn't know where to start. Just as he was perplexed, Martin's arm suddenly clenched on its own. He instantly understood something and immediately delivered a powerful blow to the ground. After a blinding light like lightning spread everywhere, the ground suddenly shook violently. The soldiers who had been dead for decades were suddenly awakened. One by one, zombies rose up from the earth. Seeing that chilling sight, the little zombie soldier was terrified to the extreme. He trembled and huddled close to Daniel to find a sense of safety. As for the final zombie officer that appeared, his aura was blazing. He marched straight in front of Martin, bowing his head to show loyalty. Like the zombie leader's army, they completely obeyed Martin unconditionally. The next morning, the zombie leader's army, after passing through a few villages, advanced to their final target, the town of Tyneset. But as they were preparing their plan, they were blocked by two humans and one zombie. Facing the entire zombie army, Martin confidently declared, "The colonel is going to fail again. It's best you crawl back into the dirt." He also said the townspeople had been evacuated early on. Hearing that, the zombie leader just gave a faint sneer of contempt. The adjutant next to him also couldn't help but laugh out loud. The mob of zombie soldiers laughed even more arrogantly, as if to say, "You three think you can change anything." Martin remained calm, slowly revealing his arm. As soon as the zombie leader saw it, his expression changed. Obviously, it was his property, and although his new arm was usable, its strength was absolutely incomparable. Martin calmly said, "Times have changed. Who goes out nowadays without a few lackeys?" Just as he finished speaking, the zombie officer led out a massive army. Seeing that Martin dared to use his own power to resurrect his enemies, the zombie leader could no longer laugh. Enemies meeting again, the flames of hatred burned even more fiercely. Right when the two leaders gave the order, the epic battle between the two zombie armies officially began. The zombies, holding all kinds of weapons, charged at the enemy. The moment the two sides clashed, a brutal war immediately erupted. The zombie officer was indeed incredibly valiant. Not a single zombie could stop his advance. Just as the two sides were fighting fiercely, the police finally sluggishly drove to the scene. Seeing the zombies socializing, they fell silent, not knowing what to do. Seeing this, the zombie leader didn't just stand and watch anymore. He ordered the tank to attack the police cars, while he personally confronted the zombie officer. As soon as they clashed, they threw ferocious punches, neither gaining the upper hand. Their prowess was evenly matched, but because the zombie leader hadn't fully recovered his strength, after a few rounds, he began to gradually lose steam. The police still hadn't figured out what was happening when the tank charged straight at them. The quick-reacting officers hastily jumped out of their cars and ran. But whoever couldn't run in time had to suffer the consequences. The survivors were scared stiff, hurriedly finding a safe spot to continue watching this world war. On the battlefield, the zombies were still charging forward, risking death, and the zombie doctor under the colonel didn't sit still either. A zombie soldier who had lost combat capability had dry grass stuffed into it by him to secure the damaged spot. In just a few moves, it was able to return to the battlefield. As for this zombie soldier, the zombie doctor came up with a more creative method, using a toilet plunger as a prosthetic leg replacement. On the other side, Daniel ceaselessly swung the hammer in his hands, 2 seemingly ordinary weapons turned into divine artifacts in his hands. The rest also charged into the battlefield one after another. It turned out they were unharmed in the tank's bombardment. However, due to the disparity in numbers, Martin's side gradually fell into a disadvantage. Luckily, they arrived just in time. Meanwhile, the confrontation between the 2 leaders was leaning in Martin's favor. The zombie officer had managed to knock down the zombie leader, but just as he prepared to deliver the final blow, a cowardly minion suddenly sneak attacked from behind. Martin and the others could only stare helplessly. When the zombie leader sprang up, counterattacking and costing the officer an important general, their side instantly fell into a passive state. But that also made a girl in the group realize there was a strange connection between the zombie leader and the zombie army. If they could take him out, perhaps the entire zombie horde would collapse as well. Martin immediately roared, charging straight at his opponent like a wild beast. Despite possessing a powerful zombie arm, his body was still just human, completely no match for the strength of the zombie leader. After just a few rounds, Martin was knocked down for the count. Right at that moment, Daniel sneaked into the tank, sending off the driver inside. The out-of-control tank hurtled straight toward them, inadvertently helping Martin escape by a hair's breadth. The 2 resumed their fight right on top of the tank. Martin seized the opportunity to suppress the zombie leader. The tank gradually moved away from the battlefield. Seeing this, Daniel immediately slammed on the brakes, but the sudden braking caused Martin, who was attacking, to fly off. The zombie leader seemed completely unharmed. At this point, Martin's stamina was nearly depleted. Meanwhile, the zombie disposal squad was also backed into a corner. The zombie leader was preparing to deliver the finishing blow to end the battle, but he had no idea that the tank had moved up right behind him. "You've lost again." Sure enough, the zombie leader collapsed on the spot. The soldiers under his command also fell down one by one, as if their connection had been severed. Unexpectedly, amidst absolute despair, they claimed the final victory. That made Martin start to look at the zombie disposal squad in a different light. When all danger had passed, they parted ways. It wasn't until the smoke cleared that the police dared to appear to clean up the mess. As for Martin, he drove away in a leisurely manner. He still had one important thing to do, which was to use the power of the zombie arm to resurrect his deceased girlfriend. Right after that, the car continued its journey. It must be said that that is indeed true love. Today's story ends here. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.